I mean, the Clippers are a little messy. The Warriors are perhaps messier. When you talk about them starting 6-2, losing 8 of 10, I believe, since then. Um, you thought they could go to Sacramento and have the warm, fuzzy blanket that is a win over the Kings, because they had, I think, beat the Kings 7 of 8 of the previous matchups going back to the playoffs last year. You thought that would kind of be the get right game for them. Instead, it's about as heart wrenching a loss as they've had in quite some time. You had the Draymond return in Sacramento that, I don't know your opinion on this, but Draymond being Draymond is one thing. I was still a little surprised that for him to have the kind of, finish that he had in his first game back after the 5-game suspension was surprising. A lot of tension there, I think, at least in game. Lots happening with your team. How off the tracks are they?
Yeah, it was interesting. They had the best half of the season, right? I mean, you were there for the first half. It was like Wiggins had 18, Clay had 17, and that's been their biggest combo issue early in the season was those two offensively. And they went up 24, which, by the way, they hadn't blown a 24-point lead, I think, since like 2011 or something like that. So it set up, and because Draymond was coming back, I mean, Steve Kerr kind of talked about the seriousness of the moment pregame of like, this was kind of the pivot point early in the season. Like, all right, got the rotation back, got to take things serious. And I think the most detrimental thing that happened, we could talk about the Draymond stuff. We can talk about some of the coaching mistakes laid and some of the veteran mistakes, the turnovers in the final minute that made it a disaster night. But the worst thing that happened to them, Gary Payton tore his calf muscle and is going to be out months. And likely, they're figuring out a timeline right now, but he's going to be out a while. And Chris Paul has a nerve issue in his leg that they're trying to solve. I mean, it's going to be kind of like day-to-day treatment type process right now. But his first he had played every game and played well to this point of the season, and his first injury bug has popped up. So they lost 2 vital rotation pieces, along with blowing a 24-point lead, along with getting eliminated from the in-season tournament, along with the Draymond continued kind of issue right now with kind of his inability to stay out of the referee's way and the league's out of the league's target. So not great. And then at the end, Steve Kerr's under a little bit of local fire because he has the challenge that doesn't work and leaves him without a timeout late. And then he benches Moses Moody, who was the hottest player on the floor, and then has now admitted it was a coaching mistake to put Moody on the bench. So yeah, not going great. 8-10. They got the Clippers twice this week, so I think your theory is going to be challenged. Who is in a tougher spot in the West? Them and the Clippers. They're about to play in San Francisco Thursday night and in LA on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, I didn't know they had both. I hate the fact that we're recording and we won't have the results of the game tonight. But yeah, that is a good little competition. Fred,
I got to ask Slater this, because the craziest part of their season, it wasn't that long ago, we were on here talking about how the bench is playing great. Now the bench is playing great. You pair it with that insane starting lineup, and all of a sudden, is this team a contender again? And that was based off of years and years of information that this starting lineup was awesome as recent as last year. Like their starting lineup last year was the best lineup in the league, plus 22 per 100 possessions. They annihilated teams. And we just kind of all figured that would continue because they all know how to play so well together. And Clay he's off to a slow start, and Draymond has obviously missed time and all that kind of stuff. But their starting 5, Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Draymond, Looney, which annihilated the league last year, is -9 per 100 possessions, according to Cleaning the Glass. They were plus 22 last year. What?
Yeah.
It's not like Curry is falling off some cliff. Like, Slater, what the hell is happening there? And how concerning is that? Like, is that just going to come roaring back, or do you see things that are concerning to where that lineup is right now? The numbers say that lineup is bad. And is it just not as good? Like, where do you think that falls?
Well, Andrew Wiggins, the first 3-4 weeks of Andrew Wiggins' season, he cratered every lineup he was in. He was like that bad of a volume shooter and like ball handler, and his defense, he was kind of working back into condition. He had a rough summer, he breaks his ribs in the playoffs, so there's some level of recovery. He didn't come into camp like ready, really. And that was paired with Klay Thompson, who had some decent games very early in the season, including the game winner against the Kings. But then he just dipped into a really big funk that obviously when Klay Thompson's in a funk, he tries to shoot himself out of a funk, right? He doesn't just like sink to the background. It's more like maybe this is the night I score 55 points. So when you have your second and third best scorers in just like combo slumps, which, you know, the crazy stat early in the season, we were looking at like, you know, game 10, game 11, and the Warriors still didn't have anyone on the team besides Steph who'd scored 20 in a game. So he just didn't have enough help. And when Klay and Wiggins aren't scoring, you know, Draymond and Looney are not just going to like pick up the scoring load. So that's basically 4 of your 5 starters are not, you know, helping out offensively. It killed the spacing. They weren't defending as well because I think Klay's, you know, taking a step back slowly every year defensively because of his injuries. Wiggins just was out of it. And you mentioned Draymond. Draymond sprains his ankle, misses camp, misses the first 2 games. He's a little bit out of rhythm, although when he's been on the court, he's actually played pretty well. And then, of course, he gets ejected in one game. 2 games later, it's the headlock in the first minute of a game. He's ejected from that game, and then he has a 5-game suspension. So it's just no rhythm, no continuity. There's still internal belief if like those 5, especially because Wiggins is playing better now. He's had 2 really big games recently, shooting better. Klay's had scored 20 in 3 out of the last 4. There's a belief maybe a month from now, if Draymond stays on the floor and everything kind of comes together a little bit better, they might still look like one of the better 5-man lineups in the league. But, you know, right now you're correct. It's been one of their worst lineups.